I get a thumbs up from my sound engineer, and that means we are ready to begin while people are still joining. I'll start by saying good morning, everyone, and welcome to this last webinar of 2025 for Change Group. And for those who do not know me, there might be some new faces today in this webinar. I am Line, and I am your host normally at Change Group's webinars. But today in the studio, I actually are joined by two gentlemen coming along.
Sneaking in.
So we have Rasmus and we have Daniel from AI Læring. The company actually collaborated with Change Group a few weeks ago, where we held a introduction course for AI to inspire former Novo Nordisk employees on how to use AI in their daily work life in a not so complex way. And dare I say, it was a huge success, so that's why we are here today, because there were limited spaces, and today everybody can join for this session with these two. So I'm not going to be a big part of the slides and what the course held, but I will sit and join the Q&A for those of you who might have some questions along the way. And other than that, we are of course recording this whole webinar, and you will receive the slides after the presentation today. All right, I will hand it along to you guys, and then I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, Rasmus.
It's time. Let's do it.
Let's get started.
If we can get the first slide, we start there. So let's go straight into it. It's Christmas. It's a Friday. A lot of people might be going to a lunch later on. It's supposed to be a really nice day, and it's not supposed to be 2 hours of boring where you take part a little bit and then you jump out. We'll really try to make this engaging as much as we can. And we do have the chat open, and we have our good colleague Christian, who looks after people and culture in AI Læring. He's looking at the chat. So if there's anything, let us know, and you can we'll answer you there. I'll also do my best to keep track on comments right here on stage. But Daniel, when you're not wearing a Christmas
Christmas hat. Yeah.
Christmas hat, can you just explain a little bit who you are and
Who I am.
why should we listen to you?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point and good question. So my name is Daniel. I'm one of the founders of AI Læring here, and we started this company 6 months ago. Also coming out of Novo with new and energized, you can say, energy for how do we move forward with this AI in this world. So I come from a position in Novo Nordisk where I was vice president of digital transformation and AI in the very regulated part of that business, observing a lot of different things there with you can say, how do you get AI in? How do you upskill people and so forth? Also saw a lot of the challenges that big organizations as well as small face when they endeavor on their AI journey there. Before that, I was in Leo Pharma, where I handled all the digital, at the end of the point at least, handled all their digital, you can say, projects and initiatives, also AI related. And before that was in Maersk. So that's a little bit about me. And then I have 4 kids, and I think that also just a testament to the complexity that I maneuver around in real life.
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Rasmus?
Well, I have less complexity. I have 2 kids, so 2 great kids. And besides that, then when it comes to the business side, then I've spent all my life, all my career, working with change management. I've been lucky to work with fantastic companies like Maersk, Novo Nordisk, and Accenture. I loved being all those places, but I also love being in our own company now. So what really drives me is how you get new technology adopted by employees in big corporations. It's not as easy as senior leadership often think. So that's why the discipline of change management, considering how do you actually get the adoption and thereby the return on investment later on, is super important. I've worked in Australia, in Asia, I've been on site doing change activities in Africa, South America. So I've been around in
Denmark.
In Denmark, I've been to Kolding, working for a great company called Solar as well, and many other places. That's the pleasure of being a former management consultant. So that's enough about me. We'll go to the next point, which is a little bit around our company. So basically, our company is around 2 focus areas. We focus on the individual and building their individual competencies with AI, so they get comfortable with it and they dare to use it in their daily work, and it becomes integrated in the workflows. We also do consulting tasks. We are very focused now on doing one-day readiness assessments and also AI use case workshop. Christian, that I mentioned before, is hosting a very interesting one within People and Culture, where we bring HR leaders together, discuss pain points, and then we come up with clear business plans, project plans, and we also demo how it could look like using vibe coding. So really interesting stuff. And with our background from big corporations, we also used to kind of implementing whole solutions. So we are an end-to-end provider of solutions. That was a little bit about who we are and probably also a bit of a sales pitch. Let's move on to the purpose of today. So really, it's 2 hours. We really want to inspire you, nudge you to work a little bit more with AI, but not just use it intentionally, use it systematically. And that's something we'll discuss a lot today. Then you'll progress. And ideally, we want you to become AI champions in your company. And that's someone who understands the bigger picture and how it's implemented on an organizational level. And we'll touch that especially after the break. So, does this sound okay to you? You can perhaps put something in the chat if you totally disagree, or if you agree, give it a thumbs up. And
we have a few people monitoring the chat in there, and they will yell at us if there comes something where we need to take action. So please be vocal there.
All right. We'll move on. So, as mentioned, it's Friday. We need to make it exciting for everyone. And we've prepared a bit of an individual focus before the break and more of an organizational focus after the break. All right. Now it's Menti time. We are really curious to understand who are participating today and where you're actually sitting in the world. You might be in Denmark, you might be outside of Denmark, but which city are you sitting in right now? That's the first Menti question we have. And we only have a few, but this is the first one.
So we see Copenhagen on there.
Yeah, we're in Copenhagen. And perhaps fair to share that we're in a very professional studio out in Amager. We've never been here before, but we are in great hands. But it's good to be out here.
Yeah.
Copenhagen and København. Yep, sounds.
Liam, that's your own place.
That's my home turf. So fantastic.
Covered there.
Yeah.
Now things are popping in. Frederiksberg, yes. Roskilde, Vejen. So we also got the Jutland there. That's really nice. Ringsted, Bagsvær, yes. Yeah. Jonstrup, so that's actually my little hood. So now it's a really local. So I love that. And as we see, there's a lot of cities in the Danish area. Not so much from outside of Denmark, but I guess that's also expected.
And this is a good first Menti, at least for me, because I turned 48 recently, and that comes with a pair of glasses. So I'll put these on because otherwise I have no chance of seeing what's on the screen. I like the Copenhagen, that was with big letters, but now I'm a bit lost here. Moving on, perfectly.
All right.
Yes, that was the first.
So I think I'll take it from here, Rasmus.
Thank you.
So now we've just done a little stretching there, getting started, and now let's move into a little bit of the nerdy part. I mean, this is about artificial intelligence, so, there is also a little bit, there has to be some nerds in here that goes in and talks a little bit about it. How we address this is also in terms where we try to make it so we all understand it. And to be honest, when we deep dive into computer science and artificial intelligence and all, I think we also, even though we are AI first company here, sometimes we also think, wow, what are all these terms and acronyms and so forth. So I think we also have in our way of educating and teaching is that we try to make it really tangible. So here we have 3 defining moments of the 50s that we start with. So we are 75 years back in history, and there we had a person called Alan Turing. So just post-war, you can say, he came up with this idea of can machines think. So it was the first kind of where we thought deeply about what is machines, can they think, can they become human. He did a test there called the Turing test, where it was basically that he made a machine, and when you interacted with it, would you be able to tell whether it was a machine or not? And last year in the ChatGPT 4 space, now 4.0, 5.2, all of that, but last year they actually succeeded in that test. So around 53% thought that when they talked to ChatGPT that they were talking to a human. So that was then, at that point, this 74 years after, they actually, we beat that test. The funny thing about the test is that when humans talk to humans in this kind of chat forum and that kind of, you can say, test, 67% think that it's a human. So still, even if you're talking to a human, you might feel that it's a machine. So another big thing of the 50s was that they had this Dartmouth conference, and I'm not going to go into all these white Caucasian middle-aged men, but they came up with this new field of research called artificial intelligence. So this was a conference where they actually came up with the wording artificial intelligence, became its own field of study. And of course, that's important because then you start to really focus in on this part of data science. And then just, it wasn't all in, white and gray pictures. And so there was also the 50s, there was also party. So I know that people out there, they know Greece. At least I know it by heart. I'm born in the 80s. I was kind of born up with this. And this took also place in the 50s. So that's really important to say. In all of this AI, there is also room for fun, and more than ever, there is room for humans and how do we spend our time there. So just to put in a little fun there. So fast forward 75 years later, that's today. Now we're here. So what has happened? And what are we actually focusing on these days in terms of artificial intelligence? So I put up 3 things that I think are top of mind. So we have the AI, the whole field of artificial intelligence. People are talking about it all over the place. And this is, as Alan Turing said, it's about how do we mimic human intelligence. So in all kinds of facets. So it could be in terms of robots, it could be in terms of how we talk, how we look, on pictures and so forth. But all of this, how do we emulate humans? That's the whole broad umbrella field of AI. Then we have the generative AI and where it generates content. This is where most of the fuss and buzz in these days is all about. Everybody's talking about how can we do generative AI. They use normally the term of AI, but what they refer to is how can you create documents, how can you create pictures, videos, everything. What is real, not real. How do we build with the ethics of now everything is created by AI and so forth. So this has taken a lot of space in the last 3 years. 3 years ago, they launched ChatGPT, and that was a boom, right? AI has been in organizations for, the last many, many, many years. So it's not new as such in that way, but the Gen AI part, the generative AI, is very new and very important. And then when we look a little bit, we are starting to see organizations and people playing a little bit around with it, the agentic AI. And this is not just the chatbot, it is also where it takes decisions. And this is a really important part. This is where you start to see computers taking decisions, performing tasks and so forth. You could talk also about autonomous vehicles and so forth, right? It continues to take decisions that actually can have more or less critical outcomes. So this is the space we're looking towards. So if we just focus in on the Gen AI piece of it, we talk about it as being horizontal because this is something that we all have in our pockets. We have like the LLMs, which is the ChatGPT and all of that, Gemini. We have those in our pocket. That's what we call horizontal. It's a general purpose technology. We all have it. It's made for everybody, like the internet. Everybody can use it. So how is it that works? That's the big question that we're going to resolve. Because if you don't understand how it works, you most likely will kind of fear it or move away from it. So let's move on a little bit. If this clicker can... There you go. Thank you very much. So it starts with world data. So there is a humongous amount of data on the internet, in the books and all of that. And what these LLMs, large language models, which is what the technology is called, what they do is basically they go into all of these books, articles, web pages, YouTube videos, sound, and all of that. They take all that information in and they start to map it out. So they make correlations in there. So how does this relate? And they make vector graphs so they see how it all correlates together. If this word, then that word would be the next probable, and so forth. So they have a big amount. It's a little bit like if you take your book and you read the first page of some page at the top, it says there is a sentence. How does each of those words correlate? So it makes a huge mapping. That's basically what it does. So then it puts that into a generative AI model. So ChatGPT for OpenAI, and there are Gemini for Google and Claude, and all of these different models that we use in our daily life, they are all tuned in some way. So they go in and tune them for how much should they be random, how much should they be strict, how should they work with biases and all of that. So these big companies, they do a lot of fine-tuning on their models. That's why then 1 week it's the one model that scores highest. So OpenAI just came out with their new ChatGPT yesterday, so now it's a little higher than Gemini, the Google one that came out 2 weeks ago, and that's how they're going to compete. And they are fine-tuning all the time, and that's what we see.
Can I ask you a question?
You can ask a question.
Yeah, so should you use both Gemini or ChatGPT, or should you just stick to... Well,
it's a really good question, and I think it's very important to be, again, perhaps using your word on intentional. So when you use a tool, try to be good at it. They will overtake each other again and again and again. And if it is a general purpose that you are looking for recipes, or even if you're looking at work, it's minor differences that you will feel as a normal person going in and using the tools. Of course, if you are a coder, you might want to use Claude's, area. If you are a person that is doing a lot of research, you might now want to go into the new ChatGPT model and use that. So it depends a little bit on the role that you have. But my general, you can say, recommendation in this is that stick to your model, because then you learn that model really, really well. We'll be looking today at different models and different demos and hands-on stuff, and let's see how they differ, but they are really much the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at you here, so Rasmus, that could be you going in there in that box, and you say, hey, I have a problem, I have an idea, I want to, find something to do when I'm in France or whatever, and then you go and you think that through. Okay, I want to go there and there and there. I want to see, this CD pizza or whatever. And then you write that in. So you write a prompt. So you write that prompt in. I want to go there. I have 2 hours. I have 2 kids. I have whatever. This is my family and all. And then what that does is it goes in and it analyzes your prompt. So it goes back to the technology and says, okay, what Rasmus is referring to is probably this and this and this, because that's what we usually see in that situation with 2 kids and all of that. It does all that correlation for you. And that's why it feels like it's thinking when it comes out with an answer. It's like, wow, it's actually quite good, this answer, and it must be thinking. But it's not thinking, it's pure math. Yeah. So it's just mathematics at play here. And then it comes out with a beautiful text, and you think, oh, that's really nice. And now I'm going to go to Rome, I can see, and then you are there, and then it might have redirected you. right? So that's what happens sometimes. You don't trust AI in all situations, right? Now you're not in Rome, you're in Berlin. That was not what you planned for in that vacation. So please be critical when you get to that point. So yeah. And I think that's just sums up the first part of the technical pieces.
Yep. All right.
So Rasmus, could you take us on?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I mentioned that adoption is something that's very close to me, and that's also why we try to build a little bit of a framework in AI Læring around how we go to help customers or clients make sure that people adopt. So during the next rest of the session, I'll touch something around personas, which are the typical type or archetypes of employees that we see in corporations. Then we'll talk about why they are where they are, or why they're stuck, why they're not moving along. And then in the end, we'll talk about, well, how can you actually create a structure around them? We use systemic thinking to make sure that they actually have the best possibilities to move forward. Because one of the key points for us is that we see that actually employees or people are quite actively using AI, ChatGPT, when they are outside of work, but then they enter the workspace and then suddenly it's not the same because there's a lot of regulations, perhaps there's not clear communication, there's a lot of unclarity basically. So we think that you can actually create a perfect environment or the best environment for people to adopt and feel comfortable using it in the workspace, and then you'll get the advantages as a company. But we'll start with these personas. And I want to call out first and foremost that they're all supernatural. It's a result of past experiences, how much exposure they had to AI, and it's just and how much they used it to date. So it's super normal. There's not a right or wrong here, but we have these 4 personas, and they are separated by the amount of usage of AI and then their understanding of AI. And I'll go straight to the first one, which is the avoider. So this is a person who, and perhaps you've recognized it with other types of changes coming to the company, that hopefully that might think, this might pass as others' initiative will pass and not really settle or be implemented. So for them, it's easier to deny than be curious. So that's kind of one of the types of people we see is they're just not in it at all. Then we also have the the observer. So this is the person who really follows along, but you're sitting on the fence, you're sitting on the sideline watching all the others taking part of this. They're interested, they're curious, but they're not using AI yet. So they need something to kind of get them started. They don't have the courage to get started yet, but very curious.
I think this one there's a funny just observation here, right? So we write bias awareness down there.
Yeah.
And that's actually because every time we write a prompt for a picture where we say, hey, can you make a picture of a person with AI and some spider web on the computer and so forth, reading a book, then it comes out with a man. Yeah. It's always a man, and that's a problem. And even sometimes, now we have corrected it in the prompt, we need to have it a woman. But sometimes, it, even if you say that, it will come out with a man. And that's unfortunate, but that's something to be aware of. That's something that we need to take in.
Yeah, definitely. And then we have the surfer. So the surfers are the ones who just use it. But they don't really use it with intention. They haven't really thought about what it actually means to using it. They haven't thought that much around bias and hallucination, some of the concepts we'll be talking about today. So they get some benefits, but it's very easy for them. So you can say it's not they're on the surface, but they don't really go deep with the usage yet. But it's a good place to be. And then we have the builders. So the builders is, you can say, what we try to push everyone towards, or not push, but nudge them towards. So the builders are the ones who really understand AI. They consider how they use it. They are aware of the biases, And they also take the responsibility as a manager when they use it. So they provide the context, they give the feedback to the model. So they are really structured intentionally, and they just take that little bit extra time to work on it and not rushed and intentionally as perhaps the surfer do. So this is what we strive towards, is having more people in the companies who are able to understand it, to use it, and also to include it into the workflows, build agents, chatbots that kind of help the team locally where they sit. And we'll get into to that actually also today. So that's the builder. And this is one of our slides we bring to our clients, where it's a little bit more formal, you can say, more consultancy. But it's interesting that there are some questions here. So, can you explain the simple terms of how text is generated? Do you understand bias, hallucinations? These questions were actually asked to you in the pre-event survey. So let's just take a look at what you answered. So 52% can explain how AI generates text. I think it'll be 100 after today. That's the goal. 71% understand bias in training data. I also hope that'll be 100 after today. And 53 use AI on a weekly basis. So this indicates surfers. And less than 5% or about 5%, they have actually implemented AI in organizations. So of course this is fantastic, and we need more of these experiences. So that kind of, for me, it sounds like we have a big group of surfers here, but still let's. And what do you use? Well, you use ChatGPT, you use Copilot, and then you use other tools. So I think that's also what we saw in the last session is. Mm. Yeah.
And perhaps just a comment here is also that this picture is what we see in general, and it's also a picture that is that generally is out there in Europe and the world as such, and I think just something to take away from it is that we are now in a place where we want people to learn, to embrace it, to trust it, and move on. But what we also see at the bottom there is that there is not a lot going on in taking it into the organization. That's the big pull that is coming now from especially the top management to pull out, say, come on, we want to have this return on investment. How do we get started? And our take on it is that you need to get the other, you can say, statistics up. You need to get understanding into the employees, because else they will not adopt the tools, right? I'm just going to pull this down again.
And then I want to ask you, so what about the investments? Where do we invest the money as a corporation?
Yeah.
Is it in the technology or is it in the people?
Exactly.
Or what's the balance supposed to look like?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rasmus. And what we see from also newly published reports is that it's actually the opposite as what we would like to. So there's a lot of investment in technology. There's a lot of investment in hiring in the chief AI officer that will, resolve all the challenges in AI. And that's like 70% goes into that, and only 30% goes into upskilling the employees and taking them on the journey. And what we are advocating for is also flipping that pyramid a little bit. So how can you get more into the upskilling, the using from the floor up? Because what is different from this and the internet and all other technical or digital transformations is that we all have it in our pockets. So we all have it. So there's a bottom-up revolution going on here that the organizations need to tackle to be able to then harvest the benefits on the long run. So I've also been in many digital transformations where you do top-down. We need to, do a new HR, people organization and all of that. But this is different because they already have the tool and they need to learn how to use it, and we need to take it to the next level. How do you do it in the department? And we'll get into that in the second part as well. So, a good question.
Yeah, and so when it comes to training, the key point is that we need to do the horizontal training. So that's the broad awareness, understand the hallucination, the bias, and those kind of things. And then you need to go down. So you can say like a T-shape, you need to go down in your vertical and specialize if it's HR, if it's sales, procurement, and understand those processes and workflows, and then tap into AI where it makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay. So we have a mentee now. So we'd like to just get a feel of who we have present in our virtual room today. So which of these archetypes do you feel closest to? Then please vote.
Which persona are you, Rasmus, and how have you moved along?
Yeah, well, the very good question. I would say 3 months ago, I was an observer. I was just looking at it and really curious, but I was really overwhelmed. And I still get overwhelmed by following LinkedIn, where I can see different type of journalists just saying, now banana something can do something. And so there's just so much going on. And I felt like I couldn't catch up or follow. So I just chose to observe. Yeah. But then I kind of started to working more structured with it. I start to make my privacy settings. I tried to put in my profile in ChatGPT. I started to give it feedback. I started to close the projects I was working on. So I was just taking 2 minutes more than I usually do. Not the rushed all over the place, but just do it a little bit more structured. And that has really helped me. So I feel I'm moving towards a builder. I'm also using Lovable to work on our website that we have. So I feel, and Lovable is this vibe coping Swedish app. So I feel I'm moving towards a builder. But I can also have days where I'm just back to surfing, where I forget to do all the good stuff we practice, to be honest.
I would also say that I'm all over. Sometimes, I'm also even going into the avoider, like I'm not going to use this because I also want the human interactions there. So don't go there. This is my spot, right? Because sometimes AI can take over also some tasks that would actually give you something back, which is important to keep on. So sometimes I'm maneuvering a little bit around, this part as I'm observing. I'm not doing a lot in, for instance, in image generation and all, but I'm looking at it and finding it exciting, but not going that deep into it. So I'm a little bit on all four, but primarily, of course, being deep into the AI part. I'm trying to be mostly in the builder part, right? But yeah,
that's good. And we can see that the voting here. So we have most surfers around. Some observers, so majority, are surfers, but we can see that we have 3 builders, which is fantastic, and that's where we need to move people more towards. Later on, we'll talk about that actually having a lot of builders can also be a problem for the company, because that can mean a lot of pilots, a lot of different initiatives that aren't structured. So these builders can also, it's great, but they can also damage efficiency and, the flow in a company. So it has to be structured in a way.
If I look at this, I would say, so there's a lot of surfer, and I think that's in general. There's a lot of people using it for all kinds of things. And what that part of the group needs to perhaps work on is saying, how do we intentionally use this for me to get more time back? How do I get more time back? How do I do market screenings or whatever things intentionally to then move up the ladder? How do I want to spend that time that I now have intentionally, not just doing nothing or working more hours and so forth, right? So then you have the builders there. They're ready. Perhaps they're ready to take it on to the next level, going to their manager, or perhaps they are a manager, lift it up on a department level. Say, hey, you and I, we can do something together, Rasmus, and then we can learn together, do some co-prompting or whatever. And then you have the observers that are still hesitant. Just dip your toe a little bit into it, right? Try it out. I mean, that would be my recommendation there.
Yeah, and that last part you said, that sounds easy, but if you are in an organization where it's not promoted, if the culture is not kind of approving that you test a little bit and you perhaps don't succeed the first time, then I understand that perspective as well. Now I've moved it along to your bit. All right. So we don't get stuck here.
Okay, because we can talk about each of these slides in a very long time, but I think for us that's too much. So let's go into this one. So it all starts with being intentional. So where is it that Gen AI can help me, and where can't it? And I'll see if I can push this on to the next bullet. There it is. What other tasks I'm performing? So if you are an individual and you are feeling that, okay, I'm ready to take it to the next level, this is what you want to do. You want to think about it. So what are the tasks I'm performing? If I'm in the kitchen at home, it's like, okay, so I'm, I'm deciding what kind of recipes. I am gonna shop my the recipe, the ingredients for the recipe. I'm gonna cook. So where in these tasks can AI actually help me? That could be just a completely down on the ground example. I also just want to point out to the prompt there, saying that again we put in a she. So and I don't know, but for me that looks a little bit like a guy. But of course, that's up for interpretation. So one of the strengths that is with AI and generative AI, you want to ask yourself that question. We're going to get back to that on the next slide. Push again. And then we get what are the weaknesses of AI here, right? So it's also looking into, so what is it we don't want to use AI for? There's something around privacy and CPR numbers and sensitive information and all, right? And then lastly also, so where would it bring value? And there are typically two places that take precedence. So it's the quality and then it's the time saved. So as an individual, you either go with quality or you go with time saved. In an organization, you would also say, well, how can it, is there new business model? Is there new revenue streams? Is there new things where this could actually enable us? And that could also be for us, because when you save a lot of time, it's possible to actually go deeper than we have been able to before as an individual. So to take an example here from a job seeker, it could have been any role, a project manager, a regulatory specialist, or whatever.
And we picked this one because we do have job seekers on the call today. So I think
we have job seekers on the call, and we did a couple of weeks ago we did a session for the job seekers, and we thought that we would take that example. But this could have been any process in your organization, basically, but also in your life and in your role in the company. So here you have the 9. We sketched it out. 9, it could be right or wrong. And what you go in through is you analyze each of these out from the strengths and the weaknesses of generative AI. So generative AI is great at analyzing big sets of data. So as I was saying, in how it was trained, pre-trained, then it digests so much data. That's what it loves to digest data. So the more data you give it, the better. The bigger data sets, the better. Then it's also good at automating routine tasks, and then it can generate content. That's one of course, the keys here as well. It has this ability to generate pictures, sound, text, and so forth, video. And then there are some of the weaknesses, right? So it's the bias and the hallucinations. So that's also something to be aware of, that it is trained on a set of data, which then means that it isn't trained on all data in the world. So in some instances, it might be trained on data that is more prone to men on women, or different, colors, or whatever. And that is something to take into account, that when you look at it, you need to take that in and say, yes, but let's just have that in mind, the human element there, that you would also say, what is ethically right in this sense. Then it has the hallucination. So also just a little technical, string here is that it hallucinates for a reason, because when it comes out with your answer, it actually has a randomizer. So you can be super stringent, and then it will come out with the one that is most probable, the number one probable. But that is not necessarily all the time the right answer. So the companies, OpenAI and all, are taking that down a notch. So there is kind of 5, 10, whatever, 20 words of probability that it can choose from. That's what it hallucinates. But it's actually a part of it's actually ingrained in there. It's not something that people can't do anything about. And that's what we call the temperature. So you can actually put that up and down. Yeah. That goes into the randomness as well. And then, of course, the copyright and all of this patent and lawyers and all that. You want to take that in, figure that out. And then it's bad with numbers. I would then say that it has been really bad with numbers, but that's also something I just heard this morning with the ChatGPT 5.2. It's becoming really good with numbers as well. But it is not a number crusher as such. So again, something to take into account. Then you list it up. You go through. Would it be good for looking for jobs? Would it be good? So you go through each of these steps. That's how you become intentional with what you do, and you say, is this a quality, and is it a time saved element? And then at some point you say, so here I've highlighted a few. So Don't go looking for jobs. Why wouldn't it be good for looking? Because already you can just go into LinkedIn and get an email subscription up and running. So don't waste time there. Deciding on applying, I think there's a human element. Don't let AI decide whether you should apply for a job here. And I think that's just a natural thing as well. And again, I would also be a little bit cautious around the contract signature. Just a little bit of like, okay, if you're putting in your contract, it may be used for training data if you haven't disabled that functionality, and that will then go out into everybody can then discover it. Whether they will, that's another story. But there are some considerations to put in, and I think that's how we want to look at it, to be intentional, right? So there's here a few bullets there. Be systematic, right? Use it with discipline as a system. Store the learnings you make. Fine-tune your AI. So now we are into when you have a dialogue with AI in your ChatGPT or your Copilot in the company, it actually it takes that in as memory and context. So continuously work with it and fine-tune it. Be the teacher, be the manager, give it feedback. It loves that. Don't just go, this is wrong. It will not learn anything from that, and neither will humans. So you have to take it a little bit like, okay, I would like to have 200 words here and an article like in the Harvard Business Review style or whatever you can come up with. That will direct that, and that will make it more like you want it to be. Then there is a few tricks there, tricks of the trade. When you start a new dialogue, you can pull in stuff from other dialogues you've had. And also when you conclude it, you can end your thread with saying, okay, so what we talked about this week, put that into a file, and then I can start next week with it. On the top right corner here, I put in some acronyms for how to do good prompt management. There is a lot of acronyms. I think this is the most beautiful one, CARE, but it could also be CLEAR, it could also be CRAFT, and it's some of the same ones. So find one that makes sense for you. Most important part here is around the context. Make sure it has the context to maneuver on what you say. So I think from that I will hand it over to you and see how can we do this in real life and try something out.
Yep. So now we'll just do a very small first thing, and I think I mentioned it before. It was around the privacy setting. So if you use, I think a lot of you use ChatGPT. We saw that. It could also perhaps you're on Perplexity. Perhaps you use Gemini. We'll go back to Gemini later on, but. There's different ways to do it, but basically the question is, do you want whatever you prompt and what you share there to be part of the big American corporations? All the data go up there. It's not supposed to be one-to-one that you can identify it, but still, this training data is that you open up everything you prompt and what you share there. So if you take up your phone, for instance, I'll do that myself here, so I can remember. And then you click on ChatGPT, and then if it's on the phone, you have up in the top left corner, you have these lines. You can click that one. Basically, you want to get to your name and that little round where you have your initials. Mine says RL. You click that one, and then somewhere down there, there's something around data control elementer in Danish. So if you click that one, then there is this, it's automatically on, but it says, do you want to be part of sharing the model for everyone? And our recommendation is to take that off, so you don't share anything with this training data.
At least if you want to be in that contract situation where you got to have that up, then take that off, right? And in other cases. And I would still say this is not like, and then just go nuts and put up pictures of your family and all of that and whatever. Within these guidelines, then you have taken a measurement that you can take, but you should still not put out all your sensitive data. I would not recommend that in any case. They are also keeping the data for an amount of hours. Also, if people is misusing the system, they don't want to check that and do that monitoring from a good sense purpose. So again, but they're not using it for training if you disable these.
No. And we'll share all these slides afterwards, so you can go back and do some of these things we talk about. So that's the first thing, is protecting your data. Then the second thing is what Daniel talked about, is that you can just take some time and personalize your model. So again, if you're using ChatGPT, you can say this personal tilpassing, personal adjustment. It's like a picture of a human and a heart. And in there, you can start to write a little bit about yourself. And it's in particular, it's important to write the section about you, so more about you. So you can say, Daniel here, he's saying, the context, he's a leader, he wants AE Lang to succeed, it wants to turn it into a competitive advantage. So there are some fields in here that you just do it 10 minutes and then it's done. And of course, later on, if you want to change it, you can do that. But it is a one-off, and it's just, just do it. That's probably the
I think it's just you get instead of putting that into every prompt you do, then you have this as a pre-cooked element. I think that's a really smart feature. And of course, all the corporations now, they are trying to get all that context. So if you also can see, you can use email or whatever as you can click that up as in Maple, then it also goes through your email. That would be for the Gemini part especially, and some of the others. So of course, it wants context, it wants memory, because that's where it can then generate the answer that you want, basically. But the flip side of that is also that it then gets all your data, and that's why we need to have the privacy settings in order there.
Yeah. And my not scientific research shows that it's minimal with people who've actually done this around privacy and around just putting in this personal adjustment. So if you get this right, you are almost among the top 10%.
Then you are starting.
It's a starting point.
Yes, really good.
Baby steps. And then I think we talked about that early on, but context is key. So you can also upload documents. So I can upload 20 documents that just sits there. So I've taken all my best presentations, some of our AE Lang articles that it just always pulls from. So that's another recommendation is just take the time, find your good stuff and upload it, because then you don't have to do it every time. So you can say it's like... it's delayed gratification here. So you have to do a little bit up front, but then later on you just benefit a lot from it. So again, we recommend you take the time to do it, and it gives a lot of time back. All right, now we are getting ready to have the first break here. So should we just see if there's any questions in the chat or anything before we start There are no questions. If you have a question, then put it in the chat right now, and I will just take a look here.
And then after the break, we will be looking into how can this benefit organizations? How do we take it a step further? So now we've been deep into the individual. How can we take it a step further? How can you work with your team, your department, and so forth to elevate your organization? So that's what would be in the adoption, maturity ladder, and specialization there. And I think that we are a lot of people in that individual space that we will lift up. And what we see and what it's going to be 2026 is that we will move on to the next step of the ladder. So that's a really, really key point to take in here at the last couple of weeks of this year, right? So super exciting. And we can just move on while if there is any. Then shout out if there's any questions, Lina and Christian. Niels?
Yeah, so while we're on a break, we'll just have this slide showing to all of you. And that's, of course, super deliberate because we want to make you aware that we actually have some training courses. And we talked about the T. So these training courses are role-specific. So all the other courses you'll see on the market, they are very general. And it's around Copilot training or ChatGPT. This is where we take outset in different roles in the organization, like a people manager that has certain tasks. And then we we use the day in the life methodology, where we see what are the standard things they do, and then where can AI actually be used. So what we're doing is what Daniel just showed with the job seeker process. It's very kind of traditional. It's the good old stuff still works. We look at all the steps, and then we see where we can apply AI. And then we have typically 2-day training courses where you get time away from the company, and you can actually have the time to just sit and learn it and have some peace to do it. So those are the training courses. And then we do these AI use case workshops. So basically, this is also for leaders among different companies or subject matter experts, where we try to bring in people sharing their pain points. They can submit use cases that they perhaps would like us to choose. But in the workshop, as a group, we decide on what to work on. Then using co-creation, and our AI technical experts from AI Læring will also do some demos and prototyping. We'll end up with documents that can be taken to leadership around a business case, a project plan, but also visualization of what it actually looks like. So it's very tangible. And the next one is here, 23rd of January, and it's a People and Culture HR workshop. There's nothing else like this on the market, and we recommend it to all HR managers to get started. And while I say that, I can also say I do talk to a lot of HR managers these days. And unfortunately, a lot of them, they are just advising that we have an HR officer, we have an AI department, and then they don't take any responsibility themselves. And that is definitely not the path forward. We need everybody in the organization to consider AI. It is not something that belongs with an AI department. And we've heard that those AI departments, they are a little bit dusty and they run their own show. So we need to kind of revolutionize and do it a different way.
So how we see organize. So I think two points here to perhaps closing remarks before the bio break here. So one is that we have this called AI consultant. I think that's filling up pretty fast because what it's for, it's an open course for project manager, change manager, consultants, and so forth. And they get the basic understanding and they get how do they move the organization forward in AI. And that's just one point there. The other is that what we see in the organizations that come to us is they are either they are big corporations that are going through a lot of different stuff and trying everything out, and then how do we get to the return on investment? So we are helping them get to that point, prioritizing, getting where is the most value for the organization instead of being in this experimental phase. The other part of the organizations, and that could be a little smaller organization, sometimes it's not a rule of thumb, but just a general thing. The smaller ones haven't started yet. So they're like, we would like a workshop where we can just talk to you about how and what could work and so forth. And we come with, use case that we've seen from many, many companies and bring that to the table so they get a starting point. And then we go into that exercise again. Where should we put the money, right? Yeah. So I think that's all.
So actually, with all that said, this is not our usual kind of a playground to do a live webinar for a lot of different people, different backgrounds, different expectations. We like to kind of set people into courses where they are among fellow colleagues working with the same discipline, and then we tailor the course to that. So today is a little different. We are, however, trying to catch all the different expectations we saw in the pre-survey.
Yeah. Perfect. I think that sums up. So we'll see you back 12:05, and then have a nice break.
Yep. All right. Welcome back. We've been speaking Danish in the break here, so I just need to go back into the English language. I think it's going quite well for me. We also talked a little bit around that it's quite humbling to be presenting for so many people who can't really raise a finger and say this is rubbish or this is great. But we really enjoy having you all here. And we know that there's so much brain power with us today. So we look forward also to meet you in real life at one of our workshops or out in your companies. Great. So going back to our adoption framework in AI Læring, we talked about that we have these personas. So we like to work structured with how we work on adoption and getting people to understand and use AI. So it's good to understand where people are coming from. It's also good to understand what's holding them back. And here we have a few barriers that we want to call out. This is, of course, crystallizing something that perhaps is hard to crystallize, but we've done it anyway. And the first one is fear. So when you are kind of offered a tool that sometimes you can see can do what you do, we're all rational human beings. So it is, of course, very natural to consider or to reconsider your job security where you are. So fear is something we see, and it's supernatural because we are rational people, and it's just something we need to acknowledge. And then later on, we'll also talk about how we can address it in a good way. But it's certainly out there in organizations, and as long as the companies communicate as they do, I totally understand that it's still present. Then we have patience, or perhaps the lack of patience. And certainly I can see myself in this one. This is where I'm disappointed when I don't get it right the first time. I was bragging earlier about me working in Lovable, and I can also say that I can be a little bit quick to give you a call when something is not working as I want. And then you just say, well, just use the chat and get help. And then I do it. So it is a human thing that we kind of like it right the first time. And also with all these different versions of the models rolling out, you mentioned numbers is not good before, but then today it's good. So things just change really rapidly. So nudging a colleague or a team member to go back in, try again this week, it might work this time, is super important. But there is a general lack of patience we see. And then there's the business paradox, which all of us can recognize. Basically, we are too busy to start learning some of the things that could help us out. So it's a paradox, and how do you get through that? But that's a classic. And I will also add to this one is the general change fatigue that we see in probably all organizations. There are so many different agendas being rolled out, different technologies, different process changes. So people are also, unfortunately, often fed up with the amount of change. And of course, that is a really huge barrier in itself, the whole change fatigue situation. And then the last one, and I certainly also recognize this one, is the feeling of being overwhelmed. There are so many new things coming. If you follow LinkedIn or different news messages, suddenly something can do something, and it's hard to keep up. So instead of joining in and trying to keep up, you kind of just opt out and just, it's going to be another day. Which is also why our training courses are good, because you have that dedicated time to sit and work with things.
But Rasmus, so when you, I don't know, do we have a mentee here?
Yeah, we have a mentee coming up here. Yeah.
Okay, so while you just present that.
Yeah, so basically we've asked you, what are you feeling? And you can see the answers better than me with my poor sight here. But the business paradox is seen. That's the number one with 3 votes. I think there's a lot of people perhaps.
So when you go out into the organizations, Rasmus, and you kind of, you're the man from our company that goes out, evaluates this, how do we get people moving beyond these barriers? So what are the barriers that you most predominantly see out there? And I know you will come into how we manage them, but perhaps just what do you see?
Yeah, so I think the business paradox is the biggest obstacle, and that comes from just having the first conversation around AI and the new technology. People just don't have the time for it, and perhaps also why they it's quite good for them that they can park it with the IT department or the AI officer. So it's actually sometimes a little bit of a relief, but you can also say it's like peeing in your pants. It's quite a short-term tactic to use. So the business paradox is super difficult. And of course, that means that we need organizations and leaders to carve out time, dedicated time, where you can sit down and work with it, where you can take the horizontal training, get the basics, and then to also go into the verticals, so the deep diving into the finance, the procurement, the HR ways you can use AI. But it all requires time, and unfortunately, time is unlimited resource. So this will always be the case out there, but we can work on it in a structured way, and that's what we do.
Now, when we look up here, we look at the fear is actually pretty low.
Yeah.
So is there any reflections on that, or how has it been earlier? Perhaps 3 years ago it was different when ChatGPT came out. Or
yeah. So the fear is low, and that's great. So perhaps the people who are answering, and we could see we have a lot of great people from Novo Nordisk also on the call today. So I think I don't think so. Study shows that if the top management go out and clearly communicates around what the intent is with AI, that we are supposed to use it to innovate, find new markets for kind of creating more value, and not to just release people, then you kind of reduce the fear. And even though you actually come with some tough messages from the top, it also reduces because people simply want clarity. And that's what the top management needs to go with, the whole intent behind. Why is it that we suddenly have to all go to mandatory co-pilot training? What's the deeper intent behind this? And that if that is well communicated, then there's lower fear. And in general, if there is communication around it, people just have a better perception or more positive sentiment towards AI, and you get more usage, you get better understanding. So there's really a lot of positive spill-off effect as soon as the top management goes out and just say something concrete, clear around what's happening with Copilot or AI or ChatGPT in our organization.
Perfect.
All right. So we talked about what category people can be in. We talked about what are some of the typical challenges or barriers for why they perhaps are not moving along or why they're stuck where they are. Now we want to talk a little bit around what are the different things you can kind of turn on to improve the adoption. So how to overcome the barriers and move people forward. So it sounds like there's a recipe coming here, and there is, but as any recipe, there's also a little bit of extra touch, and that extra touch, perhaps we can't give it all today here, but I'll try to share as much as possible. So we talked about just before the leadership and communication. So it is super important to say why AI and what are the expectations to people. So clarity around what are the desired behaviors. In my 20 years of change management, I can say that usually with whatever change is the topic, there are kind of two things that makes people not adopt. One is lack of time. We talked about that. You can't be proactive, meeting all the different expectations you get from in a company. And the second one is lack of clarity. People don't know what they're supposed to do. So instead of communicating, you need to be more proactive, or we need you to lean in. You have to say, you need to do all your meeting bookings through Copilot, or something tangible where you can say it's taking place or it's not taking place. So that's responsibility of the leadership. Then we have culture and mindset. So what we see is if you are in a culture where it's okay to try things out, it's okay to be the first one who send out the meeting minutes afterwards using Copilot, then and you're not kind of hit in the face by all the mistakes you did, then it's super important, and it kind of just creates a good, relaxing atmosphere, and you can just try things out, have fun with it. And then, of course, you need to celebrate the effort. So, nice try, Rasmus. You might have stuffed a few things up, but next time it might be better. So give people second, third, fourth chances. That's super good. Then we talk about AI champions. So people really want to hear about AI from their colleagues. This is where it really comes in when someone comes over and say, hey, I've just been using these prompts and it works really well. And then you kind of steal it with pride. Of course, there's ways to share your prompts in a more smart way using the technology itself. But really, it's important to have a structure around it. You have dedicated AI champions around the organization that people can go to, and they can also spot the good use cases where perhaps you can do even more, and together with the builders, do local solutions or go to that AI department and say, we have a business case here, we want to work on that. So super important to get tips and tricks from colleagues all around.
So I have a question here. So a few years ago, I think we all can remember the COVID situation that we had. And at that point, in the digital transformation space, there was the successful Teams rollout. So every organization rolled out Teams, and it was really successful because it was kind of made available to everybody and then kind of had to go on. So and I'm just trying to figure out, so now how does leaders or people in organizations organizations, how do they bring AI in? What's AI different because it's in the pockets of everyone? Do you have any thoughts around what's your reflections in that space?
Yeah, so bringing in AI is just even more difficult than other technologies because it changes so fast. And you have this dilemma around that people use it in their spare time in one way, and then they enter the workspace and they have to follow a lot of rules. And typically people don't like to follow rules or guidelines. So there's these differences that are just make it even more difficult. Going back to the why, I just want to call out, because I've seen it in many different technology implementations, is that if the why is not explained, then when people are told that you can still do it outside of the new technology, people tend to do it. But if they understand the why, if the senior leadership have said that if we all do it like this, we'll generate some efficiencies that we can use for more value adding and we can win new markets, then people are more kind of likely to stick to the process, stick to what they learned in the training room, even though it's still a little bit cumbersome because they're doing it the first and the second time. So that why is super important, and that's why, that's why there's so much emphasis on that. But with the why, that's good, but you also need the how, and that's what we talk about in training. So going back to organizations really need to invest in training. So you need dedicated, carved out time where people can upskill themselves. And it's not enough to just roll a Copilot out to everyone and then it's done. You need to follow up within the different types of work people are doing and do more role-specific training. So you really understand what's actually. It's great that you can build all these funny pictures very quickly or cartoons, but I work in finance and what's actually applicable to me in my workflow. And unfortunately, this is what we don't see. We see the big, broad rollouts, the big bang, and then kind of nothing else. And I have many great change management colleagues on the call today, and they've seen it many times. We just don't get the adoption. It doesn't stick. And it's just another tool on our laptop. And then something else comes, and then we have to focus on that. And if we're lucky, we use that one. So
that's very unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really about getting it right the first time when you try to implement something like AI. And that's why you need structure, and you need to look at all these 4 different, you can say, measures or tactics.
Yeah.
So what does success then look like? So we can say this is a little bit stereotyping, but we do see that an avoider can become an observer by getting that leadership clarity. Okay, I was totally denying it, it's going to pass, but when I've heard my leader and my senior leader talk about it a few times, there is a clear intent, well, then I might just at least look over the fence and become an observer type of colleague. And then the observers, they need time to do training in a safe environment. So if they're offered the, 2 hours of where we just sit down with a super user or champion and try it out, that's just what they need to move into the surfer state. And the surfers, they need, because they're just cruising along, using everything, life is good and easy, they need to just sit down and then understand, how do I work intentionally? How do I map down my process? And then how can I use AI in different ways? So that's the structure, and that's down in the, we talked about the T with the horizontal, and they need to go down in the vertical.
Yeah.
So this is the ideal state of what we see. And of course, people can move back and forward. It's people also kind of motivational driven, and motivation can go up and down and all that, we know. So from a implementation, adoption point of view, it's just to be consistent, keep working on the 4 things, and then over time you will get people to kind of stick with it, and then you get the benefits. And then we get a lot of builders, which is then kind of alert to that might not be super great in itself. It's a good
I think
first step.
It's a good start to have a lot of builders, a lot of people that work intentionally with with the tools available from the company and on your own phone. But there is a stage where it's kind of, now we need to move on. And I think from the organization perspective, as I also mentioned before, I think that is the stage we're in right now. So let's look at a few steps of how do you move up into the maturity ladder in terms of AI. So this is super small on the screen here. I hope that you can see it out there in the calls. But basically what we have here is you working on your pocket AI. So you have ChatGPT. Typically, we could see 95% of you have ChatGPT installed on your phone, and you are starting to work with that. You're doing all sorts of things with that tool and starting to be more and more acquainted with it. It's a little bit like the paper map and the compass, so you have a little bit of ideas around that. So kind of like, okay, I'm working, I can see now which direction I'm moving in and so forth. And you need to move up the ladder there. When you are a builder, you then get into the next phase. And the next stage, so we call this the prompt trap, because there is a lot of questions coming in around how do I move this onwards? And we have an example later here today also of how you can actually move into the next stage quickly. But this is where we want you all to become, those champions that break through that line there, the horizontal line. So stage 2 is where you start as an organization or a team, or if you are a family at home that want to be better at it together, then this is where you start to share. And we'll show you in Gemini, but it can be done in any tool that you have, where you start to have these projects that you can share together. So you have a prompt library, you can call it, where you go in and say, every time I have a prompt, so if it was Rasmus and I, and we were like, let's go and do some market research on a company, then we build up a prompt library that we then go in, both of us, and say, we should, when I do this prompt, I get this result. And then you start to build up the knowledge as an organization. So this is a natural next step for any department out there. If you're a department in, let's say, regulatory or whatever piece, you want to say, okay, we're going to have a regulatory playbook or a regulatory library of prompts that we use in our process that we remember from before the break. And then we go in and say, for each of these steps, how are we meticulously going through it, and how can we learn together? So that's the next step. That's stage 2 there. Then you move on into step 3, where you kind of build a solution around it. So it could be in terms of, if you are a co-pilot, you would have an agent that starts to build this up for you. So it's called the Co-Pilot Studio. So you have an internal tool that basically where you can start putting in your prompts and you get an output. And the tricky thing here, or the really great thing, is that it starts to learn. So the AI starts to learn based on the things that you do in the system, how you interact with the system. So it could be now you talked a lot about Lovable, and Lovable can be a little bit of a case that you manage outside of the organization. At some point it will come in. But where you say, okay, let's do, bids or market scans or project plans and so forth, then you build that system up in isolation, and then everybody can go in and work with that system, and it will then be smarter and smarter. Then after that, you get into a more enterprise view on things. So you start to build integrations into systems. So now if you have the Co-Pilot Studio, if you have Co-Pilot in your organization and you have the studio, which is the agent part, then you start to have that link into all your systems. So it takes data from the SharePoint and it sends a mail through your Outlook systems, and it perhaps creates something in a PowerPoint slide and so forth. So you get the feeling of this is integrated into to your Microsoft suite. And then if at the top of this maturity ladder, you have the AI first platform. So for instance, when we build in our homepage, we have dozens of functionalities in there, just as an example. And the part there is that it's AI first. So you go in there, and every functionality you build, you ask the AI to do. and it then comes back and creates that. So you have a maximum maneuverability or flexibility, and of course it needs to still be connected to the SAP or the whatever ERP or CRM or other systems that you have. But that kind of flexibility is where we want to go. That's probably not where we are, many of us today. I think we are at the lower end and just moving up, one step up of that journey, that ladder, that will make a massive amount of benefits, and it will also prepare you and the organization for taking the next steps. We actually have workshops running with the customers where we are implementing these kind of agent tools. So on that level 3, and seeing great progress and great benefits with that. So it's something that is happening slowly, getting more and more in.
And my reflection is also because we really want everybody here on the call to become AI champions and more relevant in the organization. And we hope that we get a little bit of a language around where we are with AI and sometimes it's good to oversimplify things with the ladder and the 4 archetypes or personas of people. But once you start working with it in a structured way, and you can make your own structure if you want that, then you can just be more intentionally and you can get better results and you can measure yourself along the way. Are we actually progressing? How many people do we have in the different type of personas at the moment? So that is something we really recommend, is that you get that simple language out there and that will just enable you to work structured with it. It's like all the fanatics, bike riders like yourself with your Strata watch. You need to know, are you improving? How did we do it last time? And that's the same point. You need something to measure yourself against. So as an organization, the maturity ladder here is a really good tool to take away.
And perhaps just again, tying it into some of the other things that we talked about, many in the board or the upper management, they want to have stage 4 or 5 there. They have McKinsey or other consultancy companies coming and preaching step 4 or 5, saying you will get maximum benefits from having this, and they build big Azure and all other platforms up. But if your employees are still on level 1 or 2, they will not be ready for taking that leap. So you need to connect the two. So in my own perspective, you need to build up the ladder from the bottom. It's fine that the IT department or other departments are starting to think ahead on stage 4 and 5, but from an organization perspective, you need to build it up from the bottom. So here is another mentee around, so where are you in your organization in terms of these 5 steps? Are you already on step 5? I can see there's even a step 6 here. I think that's beyond. Then I think that's nice. That's like world, but that's another story. But where are you in your organizations on these steps? And again, let's see. And I think it's also a kind of, are you in a big organization? Are you in a small organization? Which kind of industry are you in? That can lead to.
And going back to top management, do you feel that they have a good sense check of where the organization is?
No, I don't think. I mean, it's always super hard to sit in top management and have that kind of check, right? So they rely on the next level. So of course, there's a lot of levels getting down to the floor, and I don't think that they have it. I think they get a lot of push from external parties and what they read in the media and hype and all of that, and that accumulates into being some sort of let's just push for it and then it should come. They might just want to empower people to start their own journeys, but at some point, there's always somebody on top. Right, so there's a board on top of the senior management, and they will also want to see results in this AI space. We've been promised so much, and we are investing so many money into these big roles in technology. Where are we getting the return? So they get impatient also. So perhaps they go into a little bit on your barriers or your personas as well, and say, where are we actually in this? Right, they're getting impatient. They want to see money, right? So if we look up here, so we also see there are people looking at this. So I think few in the starting phase there want to move up, and some in stage 2 where they're actually building some tools together or start to talk how can we use this as an organization or a team, and then also in stage 3 where they're going into a little bit on the perhaps the agentic part, having some tools where they are AI enabled and can start sharing stuff, and even one in stage 4. I love that, and of course, there is always a next step, right? So I think that's really great.
That's fantastic. And I'm very slow to come with my key points, but just thinking about the one avoider we had earlier on, I think it's quite cool that as an avoider you sign up to this introductory course. So let's hope for that person to move into at least the observer. Or I think we can call that person an observer now. What do you think?
You can call yourself an observer.
Yeah, let's do that.
From now on, you're an observer, definitely. Yeah. That's good. And I think that's the whole purpose here is we from our heart, we really want people to not fear it, but use it in the organizations and their private life for benefit and time saving.
And we want to explain things in a simple way and not make it super complicated, because as you can hear, a lot of the things are good old standard principles. Oftentimes I remember it's only when you do a handover to a new colleague that you're forced to write down what is it actually I do. Yeah. And afterwards you're like, did I do so much? And it's so nice to have that document, but you give it to someone else and you start a new place. So it's just that good due diligence of thinking about how you do and what you do. And
this is tough material, The normal is like, this is not rocket science, but basically they're using AI when they also land rockets by themselves, when Elon Musk lands a rocket. So there are some, space science into this. But I think the idea is that from a normal user like you and I, then we need to have it on that level and then say we can also use it, right? Perhaps not to land rockets. Okay, so I want to say, yes, this model, I just want to say, we showed that before the break. It was around the generative AI model and how you interact with it. And that's the horizontal part. When you then want to go into the vertical, when you stake up those ladders, so those people that are on stage 3 and above, then you start, and perhaps even stage 2, you start to fine-tune. So what you do is you start to share how you're working with your LLMs or your ChatGPT and all. And that's by putting in documents, putting in context as an organization, right? So that's really important. That's a stage that then is put in here into the model. And then you get a specialized generative AI model, a vertical, that's what we are calling it, functional model. So you have one for your own area within your organization.
And I mean, very soon we'll have dozens of models out there. So it's not one or two, it's perhaps...
But I think the point here is you can make it yourself, right? And I think so. Of course, all the big organizations will also come with vertical models, right? So if you are in pharma, you would know Viva, or in general, you would know SAP, and they all come also with specialized models. And of course, you should also, as an organization, hook into those. How can we get the benefits? Because they have a lot of engineers working on it. But there will still be places where you say, this is very specific data that I want to feed the model where I think our department can take advantage of, and that's where you want to build these in, right? So and I think that's the cue to actually get a little bit of let's try it out.
Yeah, let's. So this is actually using Gemini here. So hopefully you can see the screen, and the key thing is that there's a URL, or you can use the QR code. So Google or Gemini, they're really great here, because this is actually this is free, and you can create your own chatbot. That's not possible with the other solutions yet on a free basis. So what you need to do is scan the code, or if you're sitting at a laptop, you can also, if you prefer the URL, you can type that up. But then you go into to Gemini and you create your own manager or your own chatbot, and you have to hit these small called gems or gem, a new gem. And now hopefully a lot of people are sitting and just typing a little bit and navigating their way. So the beauty is, again, you can go in and personalize it, but there is actually a sharing option. So if you're sitting in the same team or you want to share your chatbot with others, then it's possible. I was talking to a great former colleague at Maersk, and they were like, can you share it? And yes, you can. With Gemini, you can at least. Really simple here in a free version.
And it's the same. So ChatGPT also has, they called it custom GPTs before, and then I think now it's just GPTs, but it's on the pay version. So now we took the Gemini, but it's going to be a general thing. If you're using the Google here and you have Google Docs or whatever, then you can link it up. So you use the URLs or the places where you can find those documents. And then if you change in those documents, it's kind of automatically then, of course, refines what comes out of it. So it becomes a dynamic wording. And that's the same if you use Copilot or whatnot, then you can start to build these knowledge bases up and create these. So this is a chatbot. So again, it's not an agentic, it's not agent yet because it doesn't take decisions for you. But of course, that would be the next step. So here you can build up knowledge workers for you that can actually be asked anything. Yeah, that's cool.
A good slide to share with friends and colleagues because it calls out the key steps and then you're off.
Yeah, I think we've put in a few examples. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can build it and you can share it with your colleagues.
Yeah. And again, so one example there was also on the organizational level, right? You can take it in as a brand voice. So you have on an organizational level, you want to say, you build this in and you find a spot for it. And then people in the organization can call it and say, so is this the right brand identity, for instance, right? Or it could be the CEO putting it out, the strategy work. So you can always align towards the strategy. So there's an onboarding body. I think that's a very good use case. Feed it with all the onboarding information, and then you have a new employee coming in, and then can easily find all the information. I think that's widely used as well. Yeah.
Whenever we talk about this topic, the amount of use cases it never ends basically, and also when we talk public sector. So it's just to get started. We are getting close to the end, but there's some things left. So first of all, we just want to call out what are kind of the key takeaways. And of course, in a session like this, we've said a lot of things, planned and unplanned. But I think we would like people to take away that, be intentional, be systematic, think about the process steps you work in, and then apply the logic of, is this time saving or can this increase my quality? And then also a little bit of a nudge to all the surfers out there. And at least I try to be a real surfer once in a while. And life is easy as a surfer. It's just cruising along. But there's more to AI than just surfing. So, take the steps towards becoming a builder. So, perhaps follow this Gemini and build your own chatbot and start to work with that, share it, move on. And then when it comes to the organizational level, it's great that we have all the builders, but consider how you as an organization move up the ladder. And it starts with simple things like sharing your prompt library. And then perhaps we don't have to say so many things. Sometimes you get exhausted for looking at the entire ladder. You just need to get to the next step, just like in any other thing. Just take it one step at a time. So those are our 3 key takeaways. Perhaps in the chat, while we just pause a little bit, people could just write, if they have some takeaways for inspiration for others or for the interest of us, because we'd also like to see what your takeaway was. Perhaps it's something totally different. Then please type it in the chat.
And also, I think for any questions in general, I think also that's where we are.
Yep.
Should we go on to the?
Yeah.
So it's Christmas, right? And after Christmas comes New Year, and I think that's we want to celebrate that, and also here we want to celebrate that with all of you. So we created a little competition. So basically, we asked AI to create a competition, not just create it, but really do the coding. So what it has done is it has on our AI Læring homepage, which you can see the URL up there, it has planted a couple of Christmas hats. Mm-hmm. And when you find those Christmas hats, you click on it, and then you see what happens. But you need to find 2 Christmas hats, and you need to click on both of them. And then, that's how we work with AI. I mean, it takes no time to come up with funny stuff. And then, of course, you can always talk about whether you do too much and all. But here's a competition, and I hope that you will join in. And then the winner will get a bottle of champagne sent to your house.
So from champagne to feedback and questions. So are there any questions? Then please type them in the chat. I'm looking at it right now. It's empty. So we take it as we're good.
Can they just type in the chat? Yeah. Have there been notes in the chat? So there are... No. Yeah. Okay, so it works. Live. Technically, it works. Okay, that's what I was saying.
All right, but we do have this feedback QR code, and this is a different tool. This is Office. So we spent quite some time preparing for this. I was super nervous. You were super casual all the way.
No, I don't know.
As usual. so if you can be friends with us, then take the time to scan this code.
That would be appreciated.
And give some feedback, because it's super helpful. We haven't been able to see other than the great people here in the studio, and they don't give us much information. So please take a little bit of time and give us some feedback that we can use. Mm-hmm. But at least from my perspective, I think it's been a pleasure to be able to share so many things. I also miss the dialogue and get a little bit of feedback. True. And I know so many great people is taking part in this, so I know they know a lot as well. So
you got to talk to me. There was a dialogue going on here, but
it was.
I don't know. But of course, it's nice to see the audience and all. Yep. And I think we'll send out the slides and all. And
we'll send out the slides. And if anyone wants to reach out to us, they can do that afterwards. Or if there's any questions that you didn't want to put in the chat, just reach out to us afterwards.
Completely open.
And our good colleague Line is coming over here. And now I just said some bad things about the people here in the studio. We're here with Copenhagen content creators, and I think you did an amazing job. Yeah. I could almost read all the letters on the screen, so that was great. But thanks a lot for hosting us here today.
Yeah. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. And the best questions, they usually come like 1 or 2 hours after the webinar has ended. So feel free to reach out to either Rasmus or Daniel. Their contact information will be in the slides, as well as the whole slide deck will be sent out to you on the Monday, the latest, so you can enjoy your Christmas lunch for now, and the recording of the webinar. And as always, thank you for coming, and feel free to sign up to Change Group's newsletter to be informed in any of the projects we're working on, and hopefully we'll do some exciting stuff in the future. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows that yet, so you can go home and think about what you took from this really interesting session today, and let them know if you have any questions. For now, I don't have any more on my end other than
wishing Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year. When you get to it. Yeah.
We'll see you on the other side, and take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.